All right, hello, and welcome everybody to How to Tell Good Stories. This is number 12. Originally, we were going to have an interview, but we are switching gears, and we're going to be talking about A Tale of Two Vampire Stories, or How to Tell Good Stories, talking Sweetcast and Narwhal. This is an interesting thing because I've been looking forward to these books for a long time, and I think it is so amazing to look at and something that we can really use, and especially if you wanted to back them, which one of them you can't back because it's closed right now, but if you wanted to get them, it would be amazing to do, is to see how two different writers approach basically a very similar story, or the same story in some cases. And this one, I'm not going to say it's the exact same, because what this is the story of Dracula. Now, we're going to look at Narwhal's adaptation of Nosferatu, which is not necessarily Dracula. It is a beat for beat and almost shot for shot retelling of the silent film that released 100 years ago called Nosferatu. And Narwhal was very careful to literally retell the story of Nosferatu, not the book Dracula, but to retell the story of Nosferatu, the movie. But then we're also going to look at Sweetcast, Clint Stoker, who is an actual descendant of Bram Stoker, who he has written. I guess it's Clint Stoker's Dracula. His is actually a reimagining of the original tale of Dracula, the original book, retold and in some ways updated, but using the basic plot points to tell that story. And so we're going to start by looking at Narwhal's Nosferatu, or Nosferatu by Narwhal. This here is what it looked like when it was in funding on Indiegogo. It's currently closed, but hopefully we will get a chance to buy this on other campaigns if you want to get it or something like that. But obviously I backed it because I'm a nut about Narwhal. I think there is something about Narwhal's art that is, some people can say it's simple, but it's simple, but it's not simple, and it's not complex, but at the same time it tells a story through pictures. It's the most, it's not just that it's unique, but it does tell a story. Like, I've heard your boy Zach one time say that he judges good art and bad art based upon, like, if somebody's opening a door, does it look like the character is pulling on something that is heavy? So, like, if a character is opening a door in one of the panels, does it look like they're actually pulling on something, or does it look like their hand is just touching a door? Is it just a figure drawn with its hand touching a door? Well, Narwhal is the type that his art, you would think with his cartoony style that he uses, it would be sort of, you wouldn't think that there would be like, oh, it shows weight and it shows motion, but it does. There was a panel in Earthbound, the first one, Earthbound 1, that a guy's like falling, right? And it's not anatomically correct, it's not proportionally correct. The angle is off, the background to the front ground is off a little bit, and yet it feels like that person is falling. You get the sensation that they're falling. And I think one of the great things about his style and the way he tells the stories is how that it reads really fast. It is an animation style, and that your eyes just jump from one to the next, to the next, to the next. And it just, you move so quickly that you don't, if you sit there and analyze the the frame, analyze the panel, you'll say, okay, well, there's this is wrong and that's wrong, and this little thing doesn't make sense, and all this. But if you just move, if you keep it moving, it tells a quick story. Just panel, 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 panel. Just keep going, keep going, keep going. You don't notice it because it's telling such a great story. Sorry, my cat is going crazy here. But it's telling this great story, and it's doing it in a way that it feels, I mean, it feels real while it being such a cartoony thing. I mean, even like with something like this where you see the ship in the background, and the it feels like there's weight on those ropes. It feels like, there's really stuff happening in the scene. You know what this feels like. You can feel the pressure, the angles make it seem like it's, I don't know. It's the craziest thing, but it speaks to my heart. That's what I tell people. It speaks to my heart. And so I love Narwhal's stuff. I love everything he does. And with this being a retelling of something that's already there, he didn't have to necessarily write it. He just had to illustrate it and make it look like something. And so here he is putting together a project that this has other people's art in it as well. They're reimaginings of what it would be like. And then, of course, they did a crossover with Clint Stoker, where the two just have one little crossover between 3 pages that cross the two comics, which was amazing to do. But again, it's such a great way of telling the story. It tells such a great story. And the way that he does it, the way his art flows, the way he moves from thing to thing. I hope I'm not. Keeps doing this. Oh, well, anyways. But so again, it's just so amazing how that his art tells a story when it has that cartoony and that fast pace, but I think that works for its benefit, because the fast pacedness, it just, you move through it and you don't really see it, and the art actually doesn't get in the way of the story, which is weird to say that, but that's the difference between Narwhal is telling great stories and the art is not getting in the way of the story. It's the two work together to tell this magnificent story. And so if you get a chance, I'm going to recommend to you that you get yourself a copy of Narwhal's Nosferatu, or Nosferatu by Narwhal, if you get a chance. However you want it, you can get I would say get everything he has. Nosferatu, the interactivity bundle. If you can get something like that, if you can eBay it, he's probably going to have it as an add-on in his next campaign, but you definitely need to pick this up. But it's the telling of a story, that it's the retelling, it's the beat for beat retelling of the silent film, which was a retelling of the book, but it was changed enough to try and get around copyright, which was much bit different than now. It didn't really work that way very well, but it's a great, it's a great silent film. I recommend everybody read it. I recommend, or watch it. I would recommend everybody read Narwhal's comic, because it's amazing. It's what Narwhal does. He tells great stories. He tells them fast, a lot of pages, a lot of panels, and the story just goes, and it really does retell the movie. It retells the movie, and it's awesome. And this is a way to approach this, because again, he's not letting the art be just the only thing that matters. He's telling a good story, but at the same time, he's using the art to move you through, to just keep going. That's one of the things about like Earthbound. Earthbound is a massive book, 180 pages or whatever, and it's a quick read. I mean, most people who read it, they probably read it from beginning to end in one sitting, and it's usually like 25, 30 minutes, which is insane to read that many pages in like a half hour. But that's because it just moves so fast. And that's the way that a narwhal book is you enjoy it quickly and let it talk to your soul. Let it tell you something. And what is it going to tell you? It's going to tell you a great story that is told through this interesting style. And now we're going to move to somebody that I think is, again, one of the best writers in the indie comic scene. Definitely one of the best writers in the indie comic scene. Maybe one of the best writers in all of comics right now. He's definitely, I would put him in the top 5 for sure. He might even be in top 3 for me. For overall writing, his overall writing, his quality of writing, his clarity of writing is really, really, really good. And that is Clint Stoker with Clint Stoker's Dracula. Again, he actually is a genuine descendant of Bram Stoker. And so he is making this, what he calls an ode to the classic. Come on. I'm hating these pop-ups they're doing these days. But so we have Clint Stoker's Dracula, and you see now, of course, Clint is a writer. He does not draw his books, but he has Donald DeLay doing the interiors on this. Eric Weathers, and then Kelsey Shannon has a cover, which Kelsey Shannon is probably my favorite artist in all of indie comics right now. If you just say overall, he is probably one of my favorite. So he has a cover by him, and then Eric Canetti. And so this is a retelling, as it says, in the modern America, new lawyer John Harker celebrates his engagement when he is contacted by his soon-to-be brother-in-law, who has witnessed something truly horrific while working for Dracula's empire. When Harker agrees to help, he is pulled into the strange and secretive world of the most powerful man nobody knows, Dracula. So it tells this story of a man trying to, work his way through. It's the same. It's similar to the idea of what's going on. It's a little different because obviously before, the guy worked for the crown and he was going to help, do what he had to do to get so that Dracula could sell his stuff to move around. This is a little different. It's more of an investigation sounding thing. I haven't read it because it has not shipped to me yet, but I expect it to be great. I mean, again, the cover is amazing by Kelsey. There is just the interior art. Donald DeLay is not always my favorite artist, but I have a feeling that for this, he's the right artist, because this is a horror. This is an ode and kind of looking back to the old-fashioned horror genre. And so I have a feeling that Donald DeLay's look is going to work with this. He has a weird thing with his faces. Sometimes I feel like his faces are just never quite right. But in this case, I have a feeling that's going to be a positive, because these are vampires. You're going to have the awkward eyes. You're going to have, so I have a feeling it's going to work. It's going to work really, really well for this story. But it's just that it's going, I am really looking forward to this. But this is, again, a different take. It's not Bram Stoker's Dracula. It's inspired by it, but it's inspired by the book and this idea of a guy who is, getting engaged, and he finds out about this thing that's going on, and there's this, eccentric, nobody quite knows who he is, guy who has, an empire of some sort, business empire, and he's getting involved into it, and it's just it's a great idea of a retelling of the story, which is fantastic to do. And again, they're based off the same story though. These are going to be two dramatically different stories. This is one story that was again redone all those years ago, 100 years ago, made into a movie. But of course, they couldn't get the rights, and so they changed it just enough to try and get around the copyright, which they still ended up having copyright issues. But it altered the story enough to where that it's it's different. You know, there are very clear differences. And Max Shrek, you know, and it's just it's a great in silent film. I really do tell everybody to go out and watch it. You know, find it, watch it. It is amazing. You know, FW, what is his name? FW Murnau went ahead and directed it. It's great. It's great. It's definitely something to be to look at, because all those silent film, remember, they're telling stories with pictures, but they do have some words, but they have to watch out. You know, words are a premium when you don't have sound, and so how you tell the story really means something. And it's a wonderful movie, but then you have these ways of retelling the story. And like this, even though it's supposed to be modern times, honestly, you know, they get these Dracula girls here, and they look old fashioned, and you know, it just has an aesthetic that is, it's pulling you back to the Victorian era. It's pulling you back to an older time while setting you in America. So it's awesome. It's something I'm looking forward to seeing. I think it's going to be spectacular. It's just it shows though how that two different writers can look at something and come up with something totally different. And who's right? They're both right, because they're both telling their story. They're both telling a story that they choose to tell it. Which Clint, he sits down, he writes out, you know, a story. He does his outlines and stuff, and he sends it to the artist, and the artist does it, and I'm sure they work back and forth. Um, but Clint is an act as a writer who writes novels. You know, he writes, his dialogue is crisp and clean. His his ideas and the way that he, if you ever get a chance to you know, read Downcast, whether you pick it up through him, he's releasing it through Alterna. Downcast is one of the best written comics around. The first one was great, had some here and there. The second one really brought it. You know, that's where he sort of came into his own. And now at this point, he's really gotten to where he is telling these magnificent stories, and you can just tell that it's amazing that he's able to pull an idea out of something like, you know, an old Dracula story, have his own story, and at the same time, you know, we can sit here and say, well, there's another Dracula story that, you know, Nosferatu by Narwhal, and they're so totally different, and they're just you know, wonderful in their difference. And this is why telling a good story is, it's just that. And I just tell everybody to tell your story, is that everyone can tell the story different. If you break it down, you know, and there's arguments about how many actual stories there even are in the world. Some people will say there's really only like 3, or there's only like 5, or there's really only like 8. And it's just changing the details a little bit. But the stories, there's really only a couple. And it's really legit. If you go read the stories that were put out by classic stories that have put out, whether it's your Don Quixotes or I mean, if you want to go and just do American in English, just do English writings, you do the William Shakespeare. And William Shakespeare is every type of story basically. That his writings are like every story out here. It's every story is a variation of that. And so you can learn by reading this and seeing how people have put together and done their their work. And I love that. And Clint Stoker, it's good that he's made as much money as now, because he's been slowly working his way up and slowly building, and he's doing it the right way. He's a great guy. He's a great person, great family man. Uh, and he is just, it's good to see someone who's succeeding and doing a good job and telling telling stories that he wants to tell and telling good stories. And so again, I recommend for anybody to back this story. Back Clint Stoker's Dracula, because it's available now, um, and you can get it. It's one of those things. If you might be saying, "Well, I'm not a real horror fan." I promise you, it's not just horror. It's Clint Stoker. It's going to have a good storyline. It's going to have a good punchy action. There's going to be some action sequences. There's going to be good dialogue. It's going to be mystery and suspense. So this is something I highly recommend, is to back Clint Stoker's Dracula. Again, if you get a chance in the future, back, and on one of his next campaigns, back Narwhal and get Nosferatu if you can. I know Narwhal currently has something. What is he? I think he helped write the story or on this one that's currently funding called Blue Tiger 2. That I don't remember if he wrote the story or how he helped with it, or he has a backup. I don't remember what it was. I wasn't paying attention. I saw it the other day. But I know Narwhal has helped in some way to put together this Blue Tiger, or Tiger Blue 2. Tiger Blue 2. That's what it is. I should look it up. I shouldn't do this off the top of my head. But Tiger Blue 2. And yeah, and it's got several different stories in it, and it's just great. And so yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to getting that as well, and backing Narwhal, backing Clint Stoker. These are guys who know how to write. They know how to tell a story. They know how to do it visually. Clint gets good artists to help him tell the stories that he writes, and Narwhal is just amazing storyteller. He is an artist, a savant of the highest caliber. He is absolutely a genius, and everything he does, I want everything that he does, because it's all amazing and it's all worth it. And so, back Narwhal anytime you get a chance. Do what you want to do, but you will learn how to tell good stories by reading good stories. And these are the types of people that you want to read. Somebody who can tell a story. Again, I know some people say, well, but the art and this and that. Just, he tells a story that is going to be a good story. You cannot like the art. You, at the end of it, you can say, yeah, it was a great story. I didn't like the art. He still told a good story. You can even say, well, the art's pretty cool, but I didn't like the story. Okay, all fair enough. In this case, he didn't write this story. This was written 100 years ago, and he's just adapting it over in comic form. And so there's a lot less to do about his writing style, but it has to do with his adaptation and about telling visual stories and showing people how to do such a thing through again, that one page, one panel, one thought at a time. And few people do it better than Narwhal. And so I just absolutely hope that everybody gets a chance to back something that Narwhal has done, and back something that Clint Stoker has done, because these are the good guys. These are the guys that we want to succeed. These are the guys that really have shown that they know how to tell good stories. And so I just wanted to shine a spotlight on these guys and just be like, hey, these are the good guys. These are the guys to watch. You want to learn how to tell a story, you want to read a Clint Stoker book. You want to know how to visually tell a story with as few words as possible. Read a Narwhal story. This is where most people, after you get involved and you really start making stories, you start writing, especially comic books, you start making comic books. A lot of times we tend to mess up and stop reading, stop growing through reading other people's. And I've done that before, just because I'm like, I don't want to accidentally steal somebody's idea. I have to break it to you. Every idea is stolen. So just try to tell the most original story you can, but use the people out there who are putting together good stories. And so with that, I do want to thank everybody for listening, for joining in. I know it was rambly. I know it was crazy. I was expecting to do a interview today, and so I was totally in interview mode, and I just had to swap over. So it is what it is. I understand why, if you're like, oh, you sucked this time. Yeah, I did suck this time. Absolutely sucked, because rambling, just trying to tell a good story. But no, seriously, we can learn to tell stories by talking about stories and learning from other people and reading. And so we really need to do that. And we really need to get out there and read other people's stories. We need to, whether you do free stories, whether you're doing webtoons, whether you're buying, backing books, we need to read stories. We need to get our heads filled with stories. This is the way to escape. This is the way to learn. This is the way to indulge, so that you're not going out there committing crimes. Instead, you're indulging in your thought life, in your head. A rich internal thought life is such a good thing. I believe young children need to be told stories, need to be encouraged to daydream, and inspire them to just get out there and tell good stories. And so I want to thank you for watching. If you liked it, of course, this is YouTube, so you got to like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends by sharing it, because that's really the only one that actually matters, is sharing at this point, from what I understand. But again, if you hated it because you said, you ramble and you suck, you just keep repeating yourself about how great Narwhal is, and I don't really like his art. Okay, you don't like Narwhal's art, right, whatever. So the thing is, you hated it. Go ahead and tell me how much you hated it. Leave a thumbs down. I insist you thumbs down. Leave a comment, a mean comment. Tell me why I sucked and how much you hated this. And like I say every time, if it's mean enough, I will pin it at the top, so that's the first thing people see when they hit the comment section. Anyways, with that, I am the Christian Nomad, and I would like to thank you for watching, and God bless you all.